And I live in Laramie, but I am in Wheatland right now. My parents were gracious enough to let me use their beautiful sunroom to stream this event from. Another Wyoming. So, yeah, like we said, this is Hiking 101, how to adventure with family. And let's just jump in. So with SheJumps, we believe in the transformative play of the outdoors. We increase the participation of women and girls in outdoor activities to foster confidence, leadership, and connection to nature and community through free and low-cost outdoor education. So some of the reasons that you may want to consider hiking with your family or getting out and adventuring with your family are some of the reasons that we don't necessarily think about when we're grown. Fostering a connection with the outdoors at an early age, so creating new stewards and people who care about and enjoy nature and want other people to enjoy it as well. There are wonderful self-confidence and problem-solving skills. Climbing over tree roots and over boulders is a great way to increase agility and coordination, balance. When you're walking on the trail, it's often easier to just say what comes to mind, to talk freely, and so parents and children are able to have better open communication. Sometimes with that area in the trails. Exposure to wildlife, seeing things that you wouldn't see normally in town. You have your squirrels and rabbits, but they may not always get to see things like deer or elk, other smaller animals. And it gives you a chance to unplug together, get away from screens, get away from the hustle and bustle of everything, and just get out and enjoy some quiet, the fresh air. I said that with exercise, balance, and agility, as well as cardiovascular, I mean, you're getting your heart going, you're getting your heart pumping. And rediscovering your inner child. It's not just good for them, it's good for us too, because you want to be able to have fun, and seeing kids out in the outdoors sometimes re-sparks that in us. Before you go, so always we go over the 10 essentials, and I have a list here. These are all linked. You can click on them, and I'll include links in the follow-up email to this event. And so I won't go into a whole lot of detail on those, other than to say that one thing I would consider adding when you're hiking with children is safety whistle. I think that should always be included in your 10 essential list. I'll touch again on safety whistles later, but kids like to wander, and it's a great way to have them feel a little more secure, and you as well. Another thing that you can add onto that list, especially right now, is a mask. Some places that you go may require masks still in public areas if you have to go through them. With navigation, there are many things available out there. We're constantly getting new things available. There's many trail hiking apps. You can have a GPS unit, standalone GPS unit. You can also use your basic map and compass. But some of the trail apps that are available now, such as Gaia GPS, they have a lot of different features and some really cool abilities to them. So you can search for a specific trail, you can search for specific areas, and then you can also save your maps for offline use. So you can create a route, save it to your phone, and then when you're out hiking and you don't have cell coverage, you can pull that back up and it can still tell you where you're at and where you're at on your trail, if you're following it or not, kind of like a little breadcrumb trail. It is easiest to prep your route on your home computer, much easier, and then everything is available on your phone once you're out on the trail. They have a ton of different layers and things available, satellites, they have snow depth, they have things like air quality and light pollution layers, different labeling layers, so you can look at all kinds of different combinations of this, get an idea of the weather when you're going out, and if there's anything that you need to keep aware of before you're headed out. So as far as gear and equipment, a lot of it is dependent on the child's age. And I will include some links in the follow-up email that are articles such for helping to choose a child carrier, depending on what your needs are. Small carriers for when the child is still an infant, carry them in the front. They have specific ones for those. Then there's kinds that are carry in a combination in the backpack. You can also then, as they move up in age, get carriers for on their back or on your back. And then as they graduate to walking themselves, you'll start to want to have their own backpack that they can carry, light jacket, their water bottle, small things in it first. Also makes them feel a little more independent when they've got something that they can control and they've got to be responsible for. As far as getting the gear, look at your local shops. There's a ton of different shops, local outdoor shops, and you can find gear swaps. Sometimes they have them in person, but you can often look online. And Facebook has a ton of different gear swaps I see posted in Wyoming often. You can also look on in the newspaper, places like that. You can also, if you don't want to invest in something to purchase right away because you don't necessarily know what you need, then you can always look into renting gear. And a lot of shops will rent gear on a daily or weekly basis. And it saves a lot of money in the long run, where if you buy something and you don't like it at first. So it's one way to save a little bit of money in the long run. Some kid-specific equipment and gear you may not consider taking all the time, but with kids, they're great things to take. Wet wipes and tissues. There's dirt, there's bugs, there's all kinds of things that wet wipes can be used to get rid of. Lip balm for those chapped lips. A camera to document the experience and enjoy your time together and look back on it later. Magnifying glass for looking at those little tiny bugs on the rock, or checking out the underside of a leaf, or trying to see the tadpole that's in the water up close. Carrying a field guide for things such as animals in the area or plants, and for you then to point out to them if they might find that interesting. Binoculars for things like bird watching or looking at tall up mountain peaks. For some of the artistic kids out there, sketchbook and pencils. Sit down in some of the areas and just kind of sketch out what they're seeing, and then they have that as a keepsake as well. So as far as clothing and layers, check the weather first. The weather is going to dictate a lot of what you end up dressing them in. Layers are your friend with kids. Kids plus layers equals happy hikers. And because puddles are always going to be a draw for children, it's a great idea to have extra socks in your bag on the trail. Avoid getting blisters, avoid wet, soggy feet and boots. And then in your car, keep a change of clothes for when you get back off of the trail, so that when you're going home, they can be comfortable in some not muddy or dirty or wet clothing. As far as shoes go, when children are very young, you can generally get away with just using tennis shoes as long as they have good tread on them and good support. Kids' feet grow really fast, and it can be pricey to buy shoes that often every time they change size. I remember my parents saying that when I was a kid. And as they get older, of course, and they need better support and they're doing more things, graduate up to some better hiking shoes and boots. One thing to consider also clothing wise is if you're in an area that has snakes, make sure that you have some tall boots, that you're wearing tall shoes, protect those ankles. Back on the weather, make sure that you have wind and rain protection of some kind that you can just keep in your backpack. You may not need it, but if you do need it and you don't have it, not going to be fun. And kids don't like being wet. They don't like being wet or cold or miserable. And if they can be comfortable during the whole time, then they're way more likely to actually want to stay out. Sun protection, hats, visors, bandanas, sunglasses, any kind of sun protection that you can think of just to protect their little skin. Especially if you are carrying a child, make sure that they have some kind of wide rim sun hat so that they're getting protection on all sides. On to hydration, food, and energy stops. With water, and this goes for anything, but especially with children, bring more water than you think you will need, because it's way better to have it than need it and not have it. Bright, fun bottles, stickers, or colorful bottles, they'll encourage drinking in younger children because they like what they're holding and they want to show it off. If you're hiking with very young children who are being formula fed, you can try using the powder to save some weight. You do still have to carry the water, but you don't have to carry as much formula necessarily. When it comes to food, pack things that they actually will eat. Don't pack just good high energy food that we as adults may be willing to grind through. Kids, if they don't like it, they won't eat it. And so when you're hiking, bring things that they like, bring tasty food. It may not be the healthiest of food, but it's only for an hour, 4 hour, whatever length it is, short amount of time that you're hiking. And it can be used as an incentive. Okay, so when we go hiking, we get these special treats, and it can help them to be an incentive and into actually wanting to go hiking and go out on the trail together as a family when they can have some kind of special treat from it. Make sure to take energy stops often. Little legs get tired quick, and take stops before they think that they will need them. Try and anticipate, schedule some stops in your own head. Make it a reward system or such where there's a bridge up ahead. Okay, at that bridge, we're gonna stop and we're gonna take a break and we're gonna have a snack. Keeps them going towards another location, keeps them occupied and focused on a destination. When you take breaks, you can use that as learning time. You can play I Spy with the things around you. You can go over safety information. Use the time to take advantage of that open communication line on the trail and just talk as a family. As far as getting ready prior to the hike, choose your trail and your activity. Let the kids help with this. Ask them maybe what they're looking for. Do they want to see trees today? Do they want to see water? Do they want to see birds? Use their insight to help you choose what trail you end up taking. Equipment lists are your friend. Triple check them when you're hiking with kids. Always make sure that you have everything you need. And one thing you can do with the kids when they start getting old enough to help with the planning process and the packing process, make them their own list. And they can go in and they can pack up their own bag. It gives them a sense of independence on it, and helps with their joy and connection to that hike. Again, check the weather. In Wyoming, often we have late afternoon thunderstorms. So that's generally in the mid to late summer, not the best time to go hiking, because you're usually going to get rained out and you don't want to get caught in the rain. So check the weather, plan accordingly, and pack accordingly. Use your trail apps, save maps for offline use. And then when you have that map, you can leave that with someone that you leave your itinerary with, so that they have a much more detailed idea of where you're going to be at with your family. Prior to going out on the trail, go over your trail safety information and your basic leave no trace principles. Have a plan, but let it be flexible, because kids and plans sometimes are like oil and water, but it's best to have a plan, and you don't have to stick to it, but at least it gives you an idea of where you want to go. You may not reach that destination, but you have the plan to get there if you want to. For trail safety, this is something to go over before you go out on the trail, and while you're out on the trail as well. If you have multiple people going out, make sure that you use the buddy system and stay together when you are separate from the rest of the group. Stay on the trail, and this goes not just for protecting the environment that's around it, but also protection from things like, in Wyoming, cacti, rattlesnakes. If you stay on the trail, you're far less likely to run into those things. For children who are older and are hiking on ahead by themselves a little more, make sure that they never pass a trail sign without waiting for the rest of the group, or a fork or a junction. Be aware of the weather the entire time. If it starts looking like those clouds are coming in and you start feeling sprinkles, evaluate. Maybe you need to turn around, and maybe you need to finish that hike another day rather than continue and get caught in the rain. Better be safe. Be wildlife aware. And this is for all kinds of wildlife. I mentioned snakes earlier. We have a lot of rattlesnakes in the desert areas in Wyoming, and they like to sun on the trails. So if you're coming across and you're going up a trail and you come across a snake, evaluate. Is it going to move without you encouraging it to? If it does, maybe it's safe to continue. If it doesn't want to move and there's no way to get around it, then you may need to turn around. Things like singing and just talking amongst each other keeps enough noise not to disturb anyone else on the trail or the nature, but to let animals know that you're coming so that they're not startled when you come across them on the trail. If children do get separated, and sometimes kids, they don't always understand when they're lost. Lost is a interesting term, and they may not realize it until they're too late. So one thing that you can use instead of that is, instead of lost, if you can't see mom or dad, then you should stop. And the STOP acronym is one of my favorites. I remember as a kid when I was just learning how to hike and being a little bit by myself. Stop, think, observe, and plan. So you stop where you're at, think about what you're doing, where you've been. Do you know how to get back? Observe your surroundings. What's the light look like? Is it dark out? Is it getting dark? Is the weather still okay? And then make a plan. Do I need to stay where I'm at? Do I know where I came from? Can I go back? If you need to stay where you're at, this is where carrying a safety whistle comes in awesome, because then blow on your whistle 3 times, 3 short bursts with a pause between each, and then wait for a little while and see if you can hear anything in response. And that's the sign for if they become separated or lost from the rest of the group or their leader. As far as choosing a trail, there are a lot of things to consider, and a lot of those trail apps out there have different things. You can search for trails, like I said, you can search for locations. Many of them have filters, so you can go and you can say, I want a kid-friendly hike, or I want an accessible hike, and it'll show you paved trails. You can also talk to BLM offices in the area and park offices, see if they have any recommendations on family-friendly hikes in the area. Check out local Facebook groups as well. I know down in Laramie, we have a couple of Facebook groups that are family-based, and they do activities and they go hiking and they do different things as multi-family groups on numerous occasions. Also consider the entertainment factors. What kind of engagement do you need for your child? Do you need something that is, are you going to a destination? Will they be maintained in their concentration long enough to go to reach, say, a waterfall at the end of a trail destination? Or do you need a trail that's going to have things on the sides, attractions like cool knotty trees and a creek running alongside it, or a marsh where there's a bunch of birds that you walk past? Do you need things with more engagement in them? Also, are there permits and passes required? That's down on the bottom there. A lot of places, state parks, national parks, you will require a permit or a pass for day use or for multi-day use. And sometimes if you look into it, you can look on their website, and you can also ask at those BLM and park offices if they have any family discounts or if they have family group pricing. And sometimes that can be a lot less expensive. Some of the places that you could consider for just starting out with small family for younger children are just city park trails, things that go along the riverside on green belts. They may be paved, but they're still a mile long or so. Get them into the idea and the enjoyment of being outside. And they're also closer to home, so not as much gas being spent. If you're short on time, those are a great option. You can also look at interpretive nature trails. So ones like up at Devil's Tower in this picture, the trail around Devil's Tower has plaques and signs around it at many points, telling you about the area and about the history and the culture and the identity in the area. And then as you go up in age and you start, the kids start to get a little more independent and can do a little more challenging of hikes, you can look in state and national parks and forests, and many of those have some wonderful challenging hikes for children who are getting older. I love this at the bottom though. Remember, it's not just always about the destination, but sometimes just the journey there. So you don't have to get to that waterfall. Sometimes you just have to enjoy the silly things and the fun things and the unexpected things that happen on the hike along the way. Entertainment on the trail, there's so many different options. I mean, and there's so many things that you can do with kids by yourself. I think adults should look into some of these too when you're hiking. And some of my favorites on here, geocaching is an awesome way to go on a hike. If you want a destination that you're trying to go, but you don't necessarily know much about the area, geocaching can show you some great hidden gems. And go through areas that you wouldn't have normally expected to trek. Things like looking for meadows full of wildflowers and looking at all the different colors and the bees and things that come across them. Yes, I know that rocks is on this list twice. There's rocks and there's climbing rocks, because rocks are awesome. You don't just have to climb rocks. You can pick up rocks, you can look at the rocks, you can check out, there's so many things to do with rocks, and kids love rocks. So yes, it's definitely on here twice. For older kids who want some more engagement, photography is a great option. They can employ their artistic side and still enjoy the outdoors by taking some beautiful photography. So there's some resources here. I mentioned Gaia, GPS, and AllTrails. AllTrails is another trail app. These other links here are links to articles and resources that I think would be beneficial to the people who have attended this webinar. And I will include these links in the follow-up email. I'll have a nice page on there for you guys with a bunch of different links and resources with easy access. So, and then safety first. We want everyone to enjoy the healing and power of the outdoors, to have the transformative experiences in our wild space that shape us into the people we are meant to be. In order to have successful outdoor adventures, you need to plan and prepare properly in order to keep yourself and your party safe. So thank you guys for all attending. Are there any questions from anyone? You're welcome to pop them into the chat or unmute yourself and ask them however we would like. I know that some of the, well, I'm waiting to see if people have any questions. We have some events coming up through SheJumps. One of the ones I was kind of excited for coming up is the Wilderness First Aid for Your Pet. That's on August 26th. How can we involve children in geocaching? So geocaching has an app and you can download it on most phones should be able to download. It does require a account, but you don't have to pay for it. And you can, when you're going out, so geocaching is like a mini treasure hunt with a GPS unit. And you can go and, as if you're with young children, go out and find it yourself, of course, with your phone in your hand, but give them an idea of where maybe that cache is at and see if they can find it. And when they find something that's hidden like that, it's hilarious and so joyful to see. But then as they get older, they can start operating the phone themselves with following the map and trying to locate the geocacher as well. So they have millions of them around the world. Can you recommend online sites for hiking and trails in the Northwest? Off the top of my head, I know that there's the Washington Trails Association, and they have some great resources and links on their website. Yeah, and they have a great app as well too. I've heard wonderful things about it for the Northwest area. And AllTrails is another one that has a decent amount in that area as well as Gaia GPS has a bunch. One of the other events that's coming up that isn't until September 10th is the Mountain Magic and Watercolor. So that Wilderness First Aid for Your Pet and Magic Mountain Watercolor are coming up in the next month, and they look like some really fun events that SheJumps is going to be hosting, just as a note. Caitlin Scott says there are also a ton of Facebooks you can join. Out There Outdoors is a good publication that covers a good portion of the Northwest too. They have a lot of kids stuff and a dedicated Facebook group. Thank you, Caitlin. Would you recommend overnight hiking with small children? So that is completely up to you. You have extra factors to consider like warmth, and you have a lot more food to carry if you're doing something with formula feed or still in baby food. I know many people who have done it and do it. But I think that it is entirely possible. And if you can get the gear together and you're confident and comfortable enough with it, then yes, and I absolutely recommend overnight hiking with children. Did you start hiking as a child, and what age? I started hiking, yes, as a child. I was a young child. I don't exactly know what age, but I know that I was probably still toddler age when my family started to go out and hike. And I've continued doing so till today and will continue to do so. Alrighty, well, anyone have any last questions? You're welcome to raise your hand, unmute yourself, pop it in the chat. Thank you, Crystal. Let's see. I just want to give a thanks to SheJumps and to Claire with SheJumps for helping us get everything set up. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. This recording will be available on YouTube, and it will be attached to the follow-up email that is sent out. And I hope that everyone learned quite a bit, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone.